So we are going to talk about a mid-segment in a triangle. The definition of a mid-segment, and the reason I talked about a midpoint earlier, did everybody pick up a sheet on their way in? Mid-segment of a triangle says, if a segment joins the midpoints of two sides, M is the midpoint of AB. I can tell it's the midpoint because those two pieces are congruent. N is the midpoint of AC. I can tell it's the midpoint because these two pieces were congruent. That means that MN is a mid-segment of this triangle because it's connecting two midpoints of sides. When you have a mid-segment, there's two things, two properties that are going to be true about that mid-segment. The mid-segment is parallel to the third side. In other words, MN is parallel to BC. And I'd mark it in my picture and I would go ahead and write it off to the side. The other thing they said is the mid-segment would be half as long as the third side. So MN is equal to half of BC. Now, some people just do not like to work with this fraction. If you don't want to work with the fraction, then if you take twice the mid-segment, 2 times MN, twice the mid-segment, would be the same as the third side, BC. Because these two sides are parallel, you should be able to tell me something about angle B compared to angle AMN. Why are they congruent? Because they're what? Corresponding angles. And corresponding angles with parallel lines in a transversal are congruent. What can you tell me about angle ANM and angle C? They're congruent because they're also corresponding angles. Question? Okay. Because if these two lines are parallel, and this is my transversal, this is on the top and the right, this is on the top and the right. They hold the same corresponding spot. Okay? If I use this as my transversal, this one's on the top of the parallel line, just like this one is, and they're on the left side of the transversal, so they hold that same corresponding spot, which would make them congruent. That help? So if I told you this angle was 30 degrees, this angle would also be what? 30 degrees. If you knew that this one was 90, then this one would also be what? 90. Okay? The other one we could find, couldn't we?
It'd be 60 degrees.
It would be 60. Why?
Because all angles of triangle have to equal 180 degrees.
Because all the angles of triangle have to add up to 180. So this would in fact be 60 if it was drawn this way. Every triangle has 3 mid-segments and 3 sets of parallel sides. Okay? FJ is a mid-segment. It's connected to midpoints. JH is a mid-segment. J and H are both midpoints. F and H is a mid-segment because F and H are both midpoints. So the parallel sides would be FJ is parallel to GI. JH would be parallel to, and I'm going to write it GE because GE brings good things to life. It's just an advertisement. General Electric, their ad used to say, GE brings good things to life. FH is parallel to EI. Everybody okay with identifying the parallel sides? We good? Because the first example, that's what they're asking us to do, and some of your homework problems, that's what they're going to ask you to do, is simply identify the pairs of parallel sides. So, what would YU be parallel to in this figure? XV.
Does it matter if you say EX?
No. The order of these two do not matter. UY or YU is the same segment. Okay? UW parallel to XT, and YW parallel to TV. Some of you probably think that that brings good things to life.
So, it's like a question asking, is it the reason why TU wouldn't be parallel to YW is because use the
TU is still parallel?
but because use a midpoint you have to go to each?
No, because it wants the whole triangle side. So I'm going to go from T all the way to what? V. Because it wants the whole side of the triangle.
Okay, so let's say like YW went to like, there was like another variable, it would go to that variable.
Right. They want the whole side of the triangle.
Okay.
But that was a good question. It would be parallel to TU. It also would be parallel to UV.
But because it's
Because they're asking for the whole side, I'm going to use TV.
I got you. Okay.
Okay? Okay, here's a couple examples where we're using the other concept from a mid-segment. And example 2, I'm going to do both ways. Because remember, in the definition, it really says a mid-segment, the 2x, is equal to half of the third side. Okay? I said that you could also write it the other way. That you could say that 2 times the mid-segment would be equal to the third side. And both of these will, in fact, work out to the same value. What is half of 48? Question.
Why is the mid-segment 2x?
It's what they gave me there. The mid-segment was what? 2x. It's what's in the value. Okay? At this point, I have 2x equals 24, and I'm going to divide both sides by, and x would be 12. Now we're going to see if it came out different doing it the other way. 2 times 2x is 4x. And I divide both sides by 4 and get x equals 12. There are times when I use this concept of a half, which is the same as dividing by 2. But there are times where I think it's easier to multiply by 2. Just depends on where they give you information.
Do they both help every time?
Oh yes, both would work every time. In this particular problem, when they both have some kind of variable expression, I personally would not want to distribute a half. I could set it up this way. X minus 4 equals 1/2 times x plus 10. But I don't want to distribute what? the half. So this would not be my preferred method. I wouldn't do this. I would do this. 2 times the mid-segment is equal to the third side. Because then instead of distributing a half, what am I going to distribute? A 2. And it's certainly easier to distribute 2 than it is to distribute 1/2. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times the -4, -8. I'm going to subtract x from both sides, leaving me with x minus 8 equals 10. And I'm going to add 8 to both sides, giving me x equals 18. When you're working with things that are geometric, you can usually plug things back in to see if your answer is reasonable or not. And I would encourage you to get in the habit of doing that. If I plugged in 18 here, this side would have to be 28. If I plugged in 18 here, this side came up to 14. Is 14 half of 28? It is, so my x equals 18 is a reasonable answer. Everybody okay with these two examples? Moving on then. If I look at example 4, this is one where I might use dividing by 2 and I might use multiplying by 2 because this is just a number and it's on the outside. If I'm on the outside and I'm trying to find the value that's on the inside, do I want to multiply or divide? It's getting smaller, so I don't want to multiply it. I want to what? I want to divide this by 2, or take it times a half. Half of 17, or 17 divided by 2, is 8.5. If I'm going the other direction, where I'm working from the inside and I'm trying to get to the outside, instead of dividing, what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply. I'm going the other direction. 5.6 times 2, 11.2. In this problem, we should be able to find FG and FE as well. Why should I be able to find these?
Because definition of mid-segment.
Definition of mid-segment. F has to be a midpoint. So how big is FG? 8.5. And how big is FE? 8.5.
So you could also state that HJ is could be congruent with one. HJ
HJ.
is congruent.
Oh yeah, HJ is congruent to what? GF and FE. Absolutely. And it would always be. Yes.
So doesn't that mean you can find J and J out?
I can. What would they be?
11.2.
No.
But then
No, the whole thing is 11.2. How big is this one? 5.6 and 5.6. Because I divided 11.2 by what? 2. Everybody good? This is the same example, just different numbers. If they give me 23 on the outside, what would I do to find y? Divide it by 2. And y is going to be 11.5. If they give me 7 on the inside, what would I do to the 7 to find x? Multiply by 2, so x would be 14. Is everybody good?
Yes.
Questions? That is your assignment.